Welcome to the Journal. How ugly will it get? Very. The campaign has hit bottom this very first week and seems to thrive there, down where the wild things are, while the country chokes on froth and scum. By the way, Froth and Scum is the title of a book written by a former colleague, the historian Andy Tucker, on the sensationalist press in 19th century America. Back then, the American author Oliver Wendell Holmes said that language is sacred and wrote that its abuse should be as criminal as murder. He called it verbicide, violent treatment of a word with fatal results to its legitimate meaning. America has yet to make verbicide a hanging offense. Indeed, under the First Amendment guarantee of free speech, pretty much anything goes. There are some limits. Holmes's son was the Supreme Court justice who noted in a famous opinion that you cannot falsely shout fire in a crowded theater. That's because words have consequences, and not just in politics. People in Knoxville, Tennessee are asking if one of those consequences could be murder. Our correspondent Rick Carr traveled there to investigate. Let me warn you, some of the language you'll hear is graphic, provocative, and downright raw.
On a steamy Sunday morning in July, a man armed with a 12-gauge shotgun burst into this church in Knoxville, Tennessee, and opened fire. Seconds later, one person lay dead, another mortally wounded, and 6 injured.
The man who walked into this sanctuary on July 27th was armed with a gun, but he was also armed with hatred. He was armed with bitterness. He was armed with resentments. He was armed with indiscriminate anger. He was armed in body and spirit.
Members of the congregation wrestled a 58-year-old unemployed truck driver named Jim David Adkisson to the floor and held him until police came. At first, it seemed like just another inexplicable outburst of violence, until a police news conference the next day.
It appears that what brought him to this horrible event was his lack of being able to obtain a job, his frustration over that, and his stated hatred for the liberal movement.
Why did Adkisson hate the liberal movement? Police said that he told them that all liberals should be killed because they were ruining the country, and that he felt that the Democrats had tied his country's hands in the war on terror and ruined every institution in America. Police said that Adkisson had targeted the Unitarian Universalist Church because of its liberal teachings. The church advocates social justice and tolerance, and it openly welcomes gay, lesbian, and transgendered members. According to police, Adkisson said that because he could not get to the leaders of the liberal movement, that he would target those that had voted them into office. In the weeks following the tragedy, the congregation and its pastor, Reverend Chris Bice, struggled with what they were learning about Adkisson.
Some have suggested that his spiritual attitudes, his hatred of liberals and gays was reinforced by the right-wing media figures. And it is beyond dispute that there is a plethora of books which have labeled liberals as evil, unpatriotic, godless, and treasonous.
During that recent sermon, Bice told his congregation, some who'd risked their lives to stop the shooting, that he's been reading some of those books.
One book has the title, Deliver Us from Evil, Defeating Terrorism, Despotism, and Liberalism. If that author were here in this room right now, I would introduce him to some good liberals who acted decisively on that Sunday, acted quickly and courageously to stop the terror that came into our church building. I would introduce him to some good liberals who know how to fight terror with more than just their mouths.
Bice says even with the outpouring of sympathy from around Knoxville and across the country, Adkisson's lethal anger has left him angry and full of questions.
People were killed in my sanctuary of my church, which should be the holy place, a safe place. People were injured. A man came in here, totally dehumanized us. Members of our church were not human to him. Where did he get that? Where did he get that sense that we were not human?
Bice admits that no one knows for sure and says that Adkisson alone is responsible for the shootings. But he keeps thinking about some books that police found in Adkisson's apartment. Books by popular right-wing talk radio personalities who berate and denigrate liberals. One of the books police found in Adkisson's apartment was Michael Savage's Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. In it, Savage calls liberals the enemy within our country, an enemy more dangerous than Hitler, traitors who are dangerous to your survival and who should be placed in a straitjacket. Like Adkisson, Savage accuses liberals of tying the hands of our military. Savage isn't just a best-selling author. He also hosts a syndicated radio show.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation.
Savage reaches more than 8.25 million listeners a week. And when it comes to demonizing liberals, he's the same on the air as he is in print.
Liberalism is, in essence, the HIV virus, and it weakens the defense cells of a nation. What are the defense cells of a nation? Well, the church. They've attacked particularly the Catholic Church for 30 straight years. The police, attacked for the last 50 straight years by the ACLU viruses. And the military, attacked for the last 50 years by the Barbara Boxer viruses on our planet.
Political liberals aren't the only targets of Savage's wrath. Back when he had a cable TV show, he bashed gay men.
So you're one of those sodomites.
Yeah.
Are you a sodomite?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you're one of the sodomites. You should only get AIDS and die, you pig. How's that? Why don't you see if you can sue me, you pig? You got nothing better than to put me down, you piece of garbage? You got nothing to do today? Go eat a sausage and choke on it. Get trichinosis.
And earlier this year on his radio show, he targeted kids with autism.
I'll tell you what autism is in 99% of the cases. It's a brat who hasn't been told to cut the act out. That's what autism is. What do you mean they scream and they're silent? They don't have a father around to tell them, don't act like a moron, you'll get nowhere in life. Stop acting like a putz. Straighten up, act like a man. Don't sit there crying and screaming, idiot.
Fire Savage now!
That outburst prompted protests by outraged parents, and a few stations dropped Savage's show. So did an advertiser. But Savage hasn't apologized, and he's still on the air.
America's being overrun by an invasion force from Mexico that'll soon take over the country. You psychotic liberals don't even know you're digging your own grave and throwing lime in there. All it's missing is the worm from the tequila bottle to go with it.
Michael Savage isn't the only right-wing talk radio host who launches blistering, even violent verbal attacks on people and groups he doesn't like. Glenn Beck, for instance, fantasized about murdering a liberal filmmaker.
I'm thinking about killing Michael Moore, and I'm wondering if I could kill him myself or if I would need to hire somebody to do it. I think I could. I think he could be looking me in the eye, you know, and I could just be choking the life out. Is this wrong?
Michael Reagan, son of the former president, suggested that people who claim that 9/11 was an inside job, a U.S. government conspiracy, deserve to die.
Take them out and shoot them. They are traitors to this country, and shoot them. But anybody who would do that doesn't deserve to live. You shoot them. You call them traitors, that's what they are, and you shoot them dead. I'll pay for the bullet.
Neil Bortz went after victims of Hurricane Katrina.
That wasn't the cries of the downtrodden. That's the cries of the useless, the worthless. New Orleans was a welfare city, a city of parasites, a city of people who could not and had no desire to fend for themselves. You have a hurricane descending on them, and they sit on their fat asses and wait for somebody else to come rescue them.
Muslims are some of Bortz's favorite targets.
It's Ramadan, and Muslims in your workplace might be offended if they see you eating at your desk. Why? I guess it's because Muslims don't eat during the day during Ramadan. They fast during the day and eat at night. Sort of like cockroaches.
Reverend Chris Bice says he's heard that kind of language before.
If you look at the history of situations like in Rwanda in 1994, talk radio was a big part of leading to the conditions that created a genocide. The Hutu radio disc jockeys would call the Tutsis cockroaches.